Hi everybody, welcome to the first of these videos. I hope you're well. This is 15-minute wellbeing lessons. We also do have some English lessons if you are studying English and would like to know more stuff. But for now, recently at school we ran a wellbeing check-in and I asked students to ask me some questions about wellbeing. I'm the wellbeing director at the school and it's kind of my job to know these things, so I thought I would go through some of them because the questions were great, but unfortunately I don't always feel like I have the capacity, I guess, or the time to kind of give people proper answers in school. Mostly because they're busy and I'm busy and everything's busy and so it goes. So I thought, why not answer some of them here? And then if you have any follow-up questions or if you have anything to say or any other questions not related to what we talk about today, then you can leave them in the comments here and I can try and get to them in a future video. So I'm going to start with my little list of questions here. This is my very expensive recording setup, by the way. As you can see, I'm maybe the quality of the videos will improve, but hopefully the quality of the content will be good. All right, so the first one we have here: why do we all seek validation from others when they're also seeking validation? Why don't we just do our own thing? And that is a really good question. I think what you'll find probably is that people do their own thing. The older you get, because I think when you are of a certain age, you get to this point where you kind of understand the real kind of measure of whether or not something's worth you being invested in is whether or not it's affecting you in any way negatively or affecting other people in a negative way. Does it hurt anybody? And if it doesn't, then I think that search for validation drops out. For example, I guess, you see a lot of, like when we lived in Dubai, we used to have, there was a board games cafe quite near where we lived and we would go there with our friends. And I know when I was at school, playing games, card games, board games, like role-playing games, used to get laughed at quite a lot by some of the older kids or the cooler kids, whatever that meant then or whatever it means now. And so you would have that sense of like, you would want to show how good it was, or like how it kind of why you liked it so much, but you would want that validation because you would get the opposite from cool kids. So it's kind of it's linked to the kind of power hierarchies that we allow to happen when we're teenagers, because like you say, everybody's searching for validation. So some people get it through putting other people down, some people get it through acceptance and kind of welcomeness, some people get it through outward signs of respect. It's kind of a difficult one to get. But in terms of why anyway, the point is, everybody at that board game cafe, nobody was doing it performatively, right? Nobody was doing it to be like, look how this I am, or look how that I am. They were just doing it because, do you know what, we're here, social, we're having a nice time, we just came to have fun. And it was a really lovely place to be. Like the whole mood of the place, the whole kind of vibe of the place was great, because I think nobody was trying to like validate anything really. And I think that's one of the things, is this kind of performative thing. I see it a lot as a teacher. I've seen it a lot my whole life. You see it a lot in social media discourse of people are performing these roles of like, I'm going to be this kind of person. And then somebody will disagree with their opinion or their ideas or their thoughts. And I don't mean like in a kind of, like, even if it's a respectful disagreement, which is a thing that can happen, maybe in the world. It doesn't seem to be so much at the moment, but it could exist. And people would disagree with it, and then they kind of get on the defensive really quickly. And it's just to do with exposing your own insecurities. What the layers of kind of protection we put on top of ourselves are to try and mask the doubts we have about ourselves, inside. So for example, if you join a band, or like I'm in a band, you can see my guitar over here, and I'm 43 years old, and I'm a 43-year-old middle-aged white guy in a band. I mean, there are going to be people who think that's a huge red flag, and it probably is for some people. I've been invited to watch guys my age in bands, and I've had a horrible time doing it sometimes. But I think the thing is, we're not doing it for other people. I don't think any of us are. Like, it's fun, and if other people don't like it or don't want to watch it, that's fine. Obviously it's not as nice as if everybody wanted to watch it all the time and everybody thought it was great. That's lovely. But yeah, I think the validation comes from enjoying it yourself. And of course, it's easy to have that confidence when you're old because you've got more experience and you've got more experience of doing things that not everybody necessarily agrees with or likes or thinks is cool or whatever the thing is. And then of course you realise it doesn't really matter. It's very, very different. You know, things, and I don't want to be too cliched about it, but like things being cool or not, it's probably not called that anymore, but it is still a really relevant currency in high school. And it's because nobody has a clue what they want to be, nobody has a clue what they want to do, and really, like realistically, not to be horrible because it's not teenagers' fault, but you're in a situation where you haven't really achieved anything in your life yet, and you can't, right? Because your level of freedom is limited. If you live at home or you live with the people who are responsible for looking after you when you're legally a child, what have you achieved or contributed that can give you that sense of like self-resilience, I suppose, and self kind of bedrock? It's not to say that you haven't achieved anything. I mean, I don't mean it like that, but you know, you don't look after yourself yet. You're not an independent operator, therefore how can you really take credit for the good stuff, and how can you really take the blame for some of the bad stuff? Like, you'll get blamed for the bad stuff because we all do, especially when you're kind of teenagers, and especially when you deserve it. But yeah, so I think looking for validation is hard when you're a teenager because you're naturally defensive because you're still working out what and who is a threat to you and what isn't, and it's kind of very primal forces working in your brain and your like systems to kind of identify those threats, and it's haywire as a teenager, right? You're all over the place, and for the most part anyway. So yeah, finding that is really hard, and other people are looking for it too, and nobody wants to appear weak because we've been told that for some reason, the reason is that if you're weak, if you're vulnerable, you're open to attack, and of course that's exactly right. So you don't know who you can trust if you say to them, oh, you know, I really like playing the guitar, I really like playing World of Warcraft, I really like playing Roblox, I really like going online and doing this, I really like this kind of film, I really like this kind of music. That's part of your social currency. So if somebody then goes, that's rubbish, you're so lame, then that has a much more measurable impact than if you say, you know, if I go up to somebody and say, oh, I play the guitar, and they go, oh my god, that's so lame, it doesn't have any, there is no functional impact for that to me. And the people that I like and that I'm friends with, and the people who like me back and that are friends with me, I don't think we like each other because of the stuff we do, although it's nice to have shared hobbies, obviously, but I think we like each other because of who we are. So my answer to the question is the same as it will be for loads of these questions, because when you're talking about teenagers and why do they do certain things, a lot of the answer is fear, insecurity, and a complete inability to process and project it properly, or allow it to be directed in a healthy way. And I think that's why, you know, what in terms of why don't we all just do our own thing, because we need to feel, or we want to feel like what we're doing has some relevance and has something that like maybe matters a little bit, and if we get validation from that, then that suggests that it does. So it's a much more healthy feeling, and also because when you're young, and especially, you know, in the context of this question from one of my students, you know, you have to get up every day and go to school at this time, then you have to go to this lesson, then you have to go to this lesson, then you have to do this thing, then you have to do that thing, and it feels very often like the outside world is pulling your strings much more than you get to, and that's a really difficult feeling to reconcile, because, you know, there's a degree to which you're always working for somebody, right? You know, we have to do certain things at certain times, that's how that goes, but it's a lot less tangible, I think, when you're older, because you get a little bit more agency and a little bit more choice. So your validation comes from you knowing that what you're doing is the right thing for you, and hopefully it's doing something to help other people out, or at least, you know, not actively unhelp them, if that's the word. That's not the word, is it? What do I mean? Harm them, I guess. So yeah, that would be my thought for that. Let's have a look at another question in the couple of minutes we've got left. Okay, so our next question is in 3 parts, and it's from Mariana, who is awesome. So it's so nice. I'm so glad that she's asked a question. I hope she's watching this. You're awesome. Everybody agrees. So the 3 parts are: Why do people need to win or achieve something to see how capable they are? Why can't people just be motivated by their own self, I guess? And why do people prefer to show the world that they're winners and not that they're good losers? And I think that third one is a particularly interesting question. So let's kind of try and break this down a little bit. Well, why do people need to win or achieve something? I think that's I think I know what you're getting at, but I think the fundamental answer is until you win or until you enter a competition that's properly laid out and is done fairly and correctly, it's hard to know where you place in the kind of natural hierarchy of things. And what I mean by that is, you know, how do you know you're a good piano player? How do you know you're a good footballer? Or how do you know you're a good student? And the answer is not just in the metric of, you know, I can do this thing better than anybody else can do it. Obviously, though, that is kind of part of it. Like, there are ways to be a good student. There's a way to be a good student without getting A grades all the time, for sure. Like that's a different metric, really, that we're studying. And what we study, what teachers are trying to do, I think, or should be trying to do, is kind of measure on progress and attitude, because those are the things that matter anyway. Like, if you're naturally really talented at something and you get A's in everything, are you winning or are you just coasting? I don't know. But if you can measure your improvement, then you are winning, even if you don't necessarily come first in whatever thing you've entered. So I think people feel like a win, if you can call it that, or an achievement, you know, a student of the year or first place in a this, or, you know, that will give them some sense of like, oh, I am good at this. But actually that's not the way to look at it, because that doesn't mean that, you know. It depends how you, it's all context dependent. So it depends how you fare in a reasonably, you know, what's the word, kind of utilitarian setup, like where everybody has pretty much an equal chance depending on their talent or level of whatever. And it's hard to get that, you can't get that perfectly right, but you can do your best. Then you can see where you land, but you don't need to win to see that you're capable, right? Like if you come, I don't know what we're talking about here, let's say it's just a spelling test, and you come 8th in the first week and 6th in the second week and 3rd in the third week and 1st in the fourth week, couldn't you argue that's a better achievement than winning every single week? I don't know, depends how hard you have to work at it, depends how difficult you find it, you know. So why people need to do it, I think, is because people want that validation that we were talking about earlier. People want to be able to say, look, I did a thing, and here's how you can't take it away from me. Because we get defensive, because people will do that. You know what people are like. You will find yourself saying, oh, you know, I did my grade 6 piano, and somebody will instantly tell you how they did their grade 7, or, you know, I did this, and somebody will, you know, instantly tell you how they did it, but just a little bit more impressive. And that's really annoying and intensely frustrating. So I think, yeah, that's why people need to do it, but you don't need to do it if you have the kind of bedrock of internal confidence that can, you know, help with that. But that's also addresses the second part of your question, why can't you just be motivated by yourself? I think that's because you have no frame of reference, right? It's good to be the best you can be. And I know people say that all the time and it sounds really cheesy, but it is true. But how do you know what that is unless you've got some sort of measurement? And so I think eventually, once you feel confident in what those measurements look like, you can be motivated just by yourself, because you know what you're aiming at and you know what you're capable of, and you have a much better, clearer sense of yourself, and also the confidence in yourself that you have will grow. So you understand, you know deep down if you're achieving at your best level or if you're not. So I think it comes with time, but again, it's a lot of confused emotional states when you're younger, and it's intensely frustrating. And then the last thing, why do people prefer to show the world they're winners and not that they're good losers, is an interesting question, because actually, you know, a lot of the kind of, I will talk a lot on this, I'm sure, about podcast bros and people who wear sunglasses indoors and talk about how like they're super alphas and all that stuff. And it's kind of hilarious because they look so stupid, but it's also like a bit sad because, yeah, it's a self-fulfilling loop, but I will talk about that another time. The idea, but they will tell you something like life's a game. And, you know, the whole point is to win. And it's just not true. Life is not one game. It's a series of games. And the point is not to win, the point is to be invited back to play again. So if you do lose, it's very important that you do it well, because otherwise nobody's going to want to play with you in the future. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but for now, that's our 15 minutes, so I hope this was useful. Please feel free to let me know. Bye.